Welcome to Lock It Down Sports. I'm Locke Hoover. You can follow me on Twitter at Lock It Up Media. That's Lock It Up Media on Twitter. You can also check us out at E5280 Sports. That's E5280 Sports. And today on the show, Nico's fumble. If this Super Bowl winning coach would take such a low level college job, if Travis Hunter would actually do this, and how the Falcons draft looks now. And I want to start today with Nico's bad decision. Watching this all transpire. Wow, that was hard to say, huh? Transpire and just kind of snowball into what you thought it was on his end to how it turned out and what really happened is pretty incredible. Let me back up a little bit now that the dust is kind of settled, pretty much settled. Nico wanted $4 million from Tennessee and Josh Heupel. And Heupel said no, especially after Nico didn't show up for practice on Friday. After that, Heupel said, sorry, you're done. You're absolutely done, Nico. And he was off the team. And then it kind of just, solidified it. I mean, it was just, I guess, more of a formality, him not showing up to spring practice. And then he enters, the portal. But, I love this for Tennessee and for Josh Heupel and what this program is. And they took a stand. They took a stand. He took a stand for his guys in the locker room of, you want to be here. You want to be a Tennessee Vol. The guys on the team, and just the fact that he came out and said this, no one is bigger than the Power T. No one is bigger than this Vols program. Now, if he had a Joe Burrows type year when Burrows was at LSU, maybe a little bit different. Maybe if he had a Tim Tebow impact, maybe a little bit different. There's obviously none of that. Interesting enough, too, Dan Lanning gave Heupel a little heads up like, hey, Nico's shopping. He hadn't maybe formally entered the portal, but Nico and his dad, his reps, his entourage, his representatives were shopping. So, you know what? I always liked, from what I saw, Dan Lanning, but now I respect him a little bit more. And I think this just shows you how bad this really turned out for Nico and his reps, mainly I think his dad and his agent, I guess probably his dad once again, really are how this really just spun on his head, as he thought he was the smartest man in the room. He thought he was going to say, hey, Tennessee, I want $4 million or we're leaving. And Tennessee's like, all right, bye. No, you're not. You're gonna give us $4 million, right? We're gonna get that $4 million. I was like, no. I mean, this isn't the first time too. There's been problems that's kind of come out now with Nico when he was making his $2 million, which is what he was making. He wasn't showing up to practice. He wasn't showing up to appearances and all that. Wasn't doing any signings or autographs. That's a red flag. We already gave you $2 million as an 18-year-old. You didn't even play your first year. And so he entered the portal because he's thinking he can get more than $2 million. The $4 million he's looking for. And immediately you see Notre Dame and Southern Cal, they're out. And you're like, Tulane's kind of interested in him. And they kind of talked, but they never came to an agreement on his deal. And you saw there are a lot of schools waiting for the price tag to come down to around the $1 million range. And that was kind of the rumor. Came down to $1 million. Okay, yeah, we'll get in this sweepstakes, get into this conversation with Nico of, hey, maybe you want to come for $1 million. Sure. Well, he ended up going to UCLA, which I find quite interesting. They paid him 1.5. And why I find this quite interesting is his younger brother committed to UCLA and then decommitted and went to Arkansas. So that part's interesting. But also, too, 1.5 million. Remember, he was making $2 million in Knoxville. And oh yeah, by 2 million, he was making the true $2 million because, mind you, there's no state income tax in the state of Tennessee. So instead, he goes out to sunny California, UCLA, and after taxes, after all the California taxes I saw, he's making less than $1 million. Less than $1 million at $919,716,000. Less than a year. Less than $1 million when he was looking for $4 million. I mean, what a complete nosedive. Now, of course, they're coming out to say this because they want to save face. But some of this they wanted to say, Nico and his dad were saying they wanted Tennessee to upgrade the wide receivers and the O-line in order for him to stay. That was one thing they came out and said. Later on, they came out and said, we didn't leave Knoxville because of the money. Excuse me? Huh? We left Tennessee because of the offense. Because of Tennessee's offense. It just wasn't a good fit for Nico. And once again, huh? Let's get into these numbers here. UCLA last year had the 118th ranked offense last year. 118th ranked offense. Tennessee's was the top 25 at 15. Dive in a little bit deeper to these numbers. I saw this tweet. Nico's numbers versus FBS winning teams. So teams with a winning record. He was 85th in QBR rating, 88th in yards per attempt, and 80th in completions. But that's on Tennessee's offense, right? Not the guy throwing the ball. Also some more numbers for Josh Heupel's offense and his issues, Heupel's issues with his own offense he runs. So I give credit on Twitter once again to Grant Ramey, who he posted all these numbers. I could have done it, but he posted all the numbers and they're already there. So go look at his tweet. But here's the gist of this tweet. Out of all the quarterbacks that Josh Heupel has coached, whether it be a head coach or offensive coordinator, Nico is the worst in passing yards, touchdowns, and interceptions. The lowest numbers in all those categories. And this is even going back to 2015 when he was at Utah State. So this is looking at Utah State, Missouri, Central Florida, and even in Knoxville with Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker. And that's even Hendon Hooker's year when he got hurt. When he missed a few games, that was Nico's numbers were still less than Hendon Hooker's. Oh yeah, a little bit more on the offensive end. Josh Heupel turned Hooker into a drafted quarterback when he had zero chance, absolutely zero chance at Virginia Tech. 2 years he balled out in the Heupel offense. What did he do? He got drafted in the third round, I believe. I know he's at the Lions. I can't remember the third, fourth round. That ain't bad for a guy who wasn't gonna get drafted. Same thing for Joe Milton. I mean, you saw how bad he was in Michigan, and then even in Tennessee, he lost his job to Hendon Hooker. He got Joe Milton drafted, but yet it's Tennessee's offense. It's the offense, not the quarterback operating the offense. So, I got to kind of get that straight. Also, I think it's kind of funny too. Nico's and reps said they wanted a better offensive line at Tennessee. And I don't have a great memory, but if memory serves me correct, Dylan Sampson, the running back, was SEC Player of the Year. Conference Player of the Year, had the single season most touchdowns in Knoxville for a running back. I guess that's pretty good in the long storied history that running backs have had at Tennessee, and he's running behind the O-line. It's not bad. Now, Nico is going to have to learn an entirely new offense without a spring. He's not going to get a spring practice with a new offensive coordinator at UCLA. Yeah, I know exactly. I mean, once again, I think this just shows to me how bad of representation he had, and also the short term that Nico's looking at here of, hey, I want a payday. I want a short-term payday because, he's draft eligible this year. He's going to be draft eligible. And if he had a good year in Knoxville, if he had a really good year, maybe, he goes pro, he's a first-round pick, right? That's the goal. That's what he's supposed to be. He's a 5-star. He's the guy. He's the dude. 5-star. You got his dad chirping at him. Hey, you're stud. You're incredible. All that. Okay. Maybe he has a good year, not great year. He comes back. 4th year in the offense. And then he has to get, he gets drafted, whatever he gets. And he makes some decent money. Maybe he re-ups another 2.5, 3 million maybe in Knoxville. He would have gotten that, just his same old, unless he completely, played out of his shoes, out of his mind. Then it's even more. But the NFL is the ultimate goal, correct? I mean, you ask any kid from the time they're 5 years old, their goal is to play in the NFL. Where you can make real good money, like real money. Yes, this is short term. Yes, you should be fine being able to live off $2 million the rest of your life. But you're an 18-year-old, 19, 20-year-old. How good are you at managing money? Especially if you've got your dad's a rep who we've kind of seen how that's done. I mean, it's a short-sighted money grab to me. And maybe it's, oh, crap. I'm not as good as I thought I was. Yes, I'm a 5-star kid coming out of college. Coming out of high school. But, like they say in college, everybody's good. There's different levels, but you might not necessarily be the best player on the field like you were in high school. You might be just as good as someone else, or there's someone might be better than you. You're just as good, but can you get better? So it's a very short-sighted decision, and it's kind of poetic justice that he gets a lot less than he got in Knoxville, and he's going to a worse offense than he had in Knoxville. So, you know what? Let's see what happens when he's at UCLA this upcoming year. We'll see, right? But very short-sighted decision. Now, we got the draft coming up, the NFL draft, obviously. And it's very interesting. I want to ask this question. Where would the Falcons be this year in the draft if they did not draft Penix last year. And what I mean by that, and some of that is, you know what? Last season as a whole worked out, and some of it didn't. I mean, what do the Falcons do this year in the draft if Kirk Cousins played the way he did last year if they didn't draft Michael Penix Jr.? I mean, yes, at the time, I've explained it in my thoughts in earlier episodes in the draft, last year that around that time. Where, you signed Cousins. So, all right, cool. You're at 8. You're going to go get something to make this Falcons team better. You're going to bid around Cousins or, a defensive piece, and then you go and get a quarterback at 8. It's like, huh? Like I explained it. They didn't want to be in quarterback purgatory after what they went through without Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan to disaster. Okay, cool. We signed Kirk Cousins. Now we're good, but we don't want to be there, right? So this year, they're sitting at 15, and Ward is probably going number 1, right? Or let's just say safely top 5, which you'd have to trade up to get all the way up there. And you don't have a lot of draft picks this year. Then you have Shedeur Sanders, top 10 pick, maybe if, that's it. And then you've got the likes of a Jackson Dart, a Quinn Ewers, that range. Would you make the jump and reach to him at 15? Or would you, you get best player at 15, and then maybe if one of those two is still there, which you would think they would in the back of the first round, trade up and get a Dart or Quinn Ewers or whoever might, be that guy, at the 30, 31, 29, that back end of the draft type pick. Also, too, you got to look at reports of everyone said not a good quarterback draft this year, and Penix would have been the top of the draft quarterback this year in this year's draft, better than both Ward and Shedeur Sanders. So it kind of worked out. Now going into this year's draft, where you're going at quarterback. You're set there. You hope you're set, or at least you think you're set, That's not a worry or concern in the draft. Now you can bid around Penix and this team from the defensive side to, hey, we like our offensive weapons with London. Pitt needs to figure his ish out, but, maybe this year it clicks for Kyle Pitts' last year of his deal, right? His rookie year. You got Mooney on the outside as well. You got your 2 backs you like. So you like the offensive weapons. Let's get that defense so we don't have to build around. Maybe you get something offense late in the draft, whatever. But I've got the most important thing in place, or I think I do, in quarterback. As the Falcons could still trade Kirk Cousins too for a pick coming up in the draft, as I would be very handy for the Falcons. The way this draft lines up is they've only got 5 picks. They've got a first, a second, a fourth, and 2 sevenths. So yeah, if you trade Cousins for a third, fourth, fifth, whatever, sixth, whatever it is, yes, maybe that 6th round pick or maybe 1 or 2 7th round picks is for a backup quarterback. Okay, you still have to get, maybe you still get one. But you got all that money to work with from Kirk Cousins, obviously. And so I think the reasons are pretty clear why, it kind of didn't work out with the Cousins. Of course, we saw all the on-field stuff, the tampering where he speaks and they lose a 5th round pick. The play, was he hurt? Was he not hurt? Was he afraid to get Wally pipped? all that, but then also the offseason of they got all this money tied to them and this cap space. They can't sign free agents if they wanted to. They couldn't really go out and get someone if they wanted to. So it's a very interesting look back, as the Falcons are definitely a better spot now going into this draft because, hey, we've got our quarterback. We're good. We're set. And if we don't trade him, we've potentially got our backup so we can use his picks for something else. That's the positive. But it's an interesting look back and kind of rewind of the 2024 draft compared to going into the 2025 draft. Now, I saw this quote or this talking point, and I had to do a double take. I had to read, I had to listen to it. John Gruden appeared on the Mike Keith show, and he said he wanted to be a GA, a grad assistant at Tennessee. I mean, you know his connection at Tennessee with Tennessee, where that's his first job as a grad assistant in Knoxville. And I saw that, I was like, wait a minute. If there's any truth to this, if there's any legs to this, Heupel should be on the phone, on the horn. If he wasn't and hasn't been already, call up John Gruden and be like, hey, are you serious with this? Want to be a GA? Now, maybe instead of a grad assistant, you make him an analyst. And you can have as many analysts as you want. Maybe save GAs for someone else, an analyst, because I don't think Gruden would actually really want to go back to school. So you make him an analyst and just let him break down a film all day, do whatever he wants from any film analyst duties and roles. Let him go at it. If he said he wants to sit there and do it and love to do it, do it if you're Josh Heupel. I mean, be great knowledge. I mean, the great knowledge that Gruden has, and there'd be no pressure on him. John Gruden, he's just an analyst, offensive, defensive analyst, or whatever you want to put him as. Let him go. Let him dig in. I mean, I think he'd be great, of course, a great asset to Tennessee. A recruiting weapon too. You put him on the road to recruit, maybe not, or maybe you just know what? You're in Knoxville. This is your area right here. You're Knoxville, Nashville. That's your area. Go talk to a few of these kids, whatever. But just the fact that kids come and learn from a John Gruden, I think would be a big hit and a great thing and a resource for everybody. Heupel, hey Gruden, hey John, what do you think about this? Do you like it? Yeah, he gets his feedback, whatever. Or, Gruden can mix in a wrinkle two here or there. It would be a win-win in a match if John Gruden is actually serious about this, which would be absolutely awesome. Now, something that also kind of caught my ear a little bit was what Travis Hunter came out and said, where he might not play football if a team come out and said you can only play one side of the ball. I would actually like to see that happen on his end. If this team's like, hey, we like you as a receiver, or we like you as a corner, whichever one you want to pick, and see if he actually says, well, I guess I'm not playing. Would he really give up his dream, his goal to play in the NFL first and foremost? Secondly, to be the star that he thinks he is and he can become. Yeah, he was great in college, absolutely. There's no denying that. Heisman and all that can play. It'd be eye-opening if he's like, nope, I'm not going to play because you told me I only can play X position. Now, of course, I don't think a team, especially initially they're drafting him, is going to say that. They're going to draft him. They're going to evaluate him. They're going to let him play during the regular season both ways. They're going to do it. And I think the interesting thing to watch is going to be if he's elite at both, then of course you just let it ride. You know, he plays DB and receiver and corner, you're good, right? But what if later on, or maybe year 2, say year 3 in the league, it's, hey, Travis, we love you, but I think you can be elite at this position, whether it's corner, whether it's wide receiver, you know, whatever side, you know, whatever side of the ball it is. And do you think he would still change, saying, you know what, I see the money, I can get a huge payday being a top 5 wide receiver or a top 5 corner if I spend all my time, all my energy, all my focus on this position? Or do I want to keep being an average receiver corner, you know? I would be interested if it comes down to this. And is he happy being an average at both receiver and corner in the NFL? Or does he want to be great? Does he want to be one of the best? And everything you see from him, the way he talks, carries himself, he has a drive to be great. You know, he wants to be the best at he wants to be the best football player on the field, which I get. I love that. Of course, it's just gonna be the question of, can he hold up? Can he do it? And can he be the best at one position or both positions? Only time will tell to see how it is taken care of and how it's handled by the team and the franchise that he's at. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at Lock It Up Media. That's Lock It Up Media on Twitter. You can also check us out at E5280 Sports. You'll be listening to Lock It Down Sports. I'm Locke Hoover. Have a good day, everyone. Talk to you next week.